What is good, everybody? Welcome to a very special live edition under review on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He's Vish Kumaran. Vish, the legal tampering period is underway. Things are happening around the league, but right now, not a lot is happening with the 49ers, although that could change.
You don't think Arik Armstead getting cut is not a lot happening? I think that's a lot happening. I mean, we're talking about a Super Bowl linchpin player, a guy that they drafted in the first round, a guy with an amazing story. When you talk about surviving two different regimes, right? The regime that drafted him got fired. That was Jim Tomsula. Then Chip Kelly got fired. Then he got moved to playing the Leo in 2017, dropped 20 pounds to like 265. That's a detail in his career people don't remember. In 2017, then he played defensive end as the big defensive end from 2018, 2019, got his extension, kicked inside in 2021, consummate leader, professional captain. They're all the time their Walter Player Man of the Year designate. Like, I think that's a big deal for
Great.
sure.
Thanks for everything, Eric. Fantastic player. Got so much out of you when you were drafted. Like, if you told me the second he was drafted, that's what you were going to get. Like, I don't know how you could be upset with that, but that's a move that needed to happen. And let me just say this too. First of all, that's not official yet. None of this stuff is official. He hasn't been released yet. He probably will be, but they also said that they were close on a reworked contract. So maybe he tries to see what's out there and then ultimately says, okay, I'll take that reworked contract, and then never actually have to release him. So,
right. This is a great detail. This is a great detail. And I saw David Lombardi tweeted this. And this is where the negotiation is ongoing. I think the first part of this deal is basically to allow him in free agency to see if there's what is his market? Like, what is the capability? What am I capable of getting? And I think that's what the 49ers have allowed him to do. So I think this is just them out of respect to Armstead, what he's done. They're allowing him to seek business in the open market. And there's still a possibility, right? In the case that he doesn't like the business he's getting in the open market and the Niners restructure is pretty decent, that he comes back and this isn't even news. This was fake news.
So we will see. For anyone that doesn't know, some big names that maybe you were hoping for the 49ers are off the board, at least again. None of this is official, so it could change, but in terms of everything we know, Christian Wilkins, that one just came down. He's headed to the Raiders, the big defensive tackle from Miami. So he is off the board for the 49ers, which if you were thinking, hey, they're going to get rid of Arik Armstead, maybe they bring in Wilkins to replace him. That is not happening. Jonathan Greenard from the Texans is now going to Minnesota. He is off the board for the 49ers. That's somebody that Michelle wanted. I know you were pretty excited about it when we talked before the show today.
I wanted him as well.
Tell us why.
He's just a great player, a good fit. He got a little bit more money from Minnesota than I thought he was getting. I thought he was a name that was a little bit under the radar. Clearly he isn't. But I just thought he was a good fit. He's young. The thing with the 49ers is signing Danielle Hunter at this point in free agency would be awesome. But I was hoping that they would get a younger type of player. A Christian Wilkins, a Jonathan Greenard is a player that they can sign, and he's not just someone that they're signing for today, right? And I made this mistake in a few other times when I've talked about the Niners, and they've been right. They've been really good in free agency about not necessarily signing the older player, getting a younger, more ascending player and having them grow. Like, instead of just signing somebody because of what they have done, they sign them and they have a plan to help them grow. Like, Mooney Ward came here as a good player. They signed him for a large amount of money and he became a better player. And so I wanted them to sign Von Miller. That's what I was going to say a couple years ago. And you see the salary cap hell that the Von Miller contract has put the Bills into. And that's just a great example of how, hey, you sign a free agent for what he has to do that year. Well, something goes wrong. He tears his ACL, which is what happened to Von Miller. Next thing you know, that contract is just an albatross, and it is something that impedes your franchise from moving forward. So similarly, I thought Greenard fit that mold of a player that's still growing, that's still ascending, a player that, okay, he had a really good year. The Niners are going to give him a big contract, but he's going to come to the Niners and have better years. He's going to get even better. So that was my idea with Greenard. I think there's more players that fit that mold. Bryce Huff, I know there's people that are going to be going aggressively after him today. I think Philadelphia was the one I saw, was the rumor yesterday that they're going to be aggressively going after Bryce Huff. That would be another name you could throw in there of a similar mold. But certainly, I think the Mike Silver tweet has us all on edge, right? I think we think the 49ers are going to make a huge move after he said it.
I mean, so for anyone that didn't see, Mike Silver had a thread last night that he tweeted out, which if you listen to the 49ers in 5 and this morning, I summarized for you. Just saying, maybe check out 49ers in 5. It comes out every weekday. It's a 5-minute update on everything that you need to know that happens with the NFL. And Silver had a couple of things in there, one of which was if the Niners sign a pass rusher, Arik Armstead may be out. Well, it looks like that's happening regardless of whether the Niners sign a pass rusher. He also said he expects them to be, quote, urgency was the word he used in acquiring that famed second edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa. Danielle Hunter seems to be the guy right now, coming off a 16.5 sack season. That's the guy that I would want to target if you're going to go out and get somebody in this free agent market. Great player. 5 seasons of double-digit sacks. This is not a guy that you have to hope can do it. Like, he can do it. And he's done it for a while. He's 30, or he'll turn 30, I believe, this year in October. So that would be the guy. If they signed him, I would say, okay, I would feel comfortable.
Yeah, that would be a superstar signing. That would be a big time go get, like a game changer. He is a great, great, great player. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at Hindman's comment in the chat that says Trent Baalke special. Gabe Davis 3 years.
Gabe Davis 3 years, $50 million. Okay. By the way, Arik Armstead was the last Trent Baalke pick still on the roster.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, Jimmy Ward got left last year, so yeah,
right.
It makes sense. And Dante Johnson didn't make it back healthy.
And I want to point this out too, because I definitely, you feel like a little FOMO when you're like, look at all these guys. The Raiders got this guy, the Titans got Tony Pollard, and you're like, the Niners haven't done anything. You can't build your team through free agency. Free agency has to be the crown molding in the house, right?
Yeah.
You don't buy a house because of crown molding, and you don't worry about it until the end. That's the last thing you worry about. All these teams signing these guys are trying to get rosters like the 49ers already have. Just keep that in mind. I know it's easy to get FOMO today because you're checking Twitter and it's, oh my God, everybody's signing this, that, and the other thing. Relax, take a breath. Yes, we want the Niners to make some moves, but ultimately the house is solid.
Yeah, for sure. But I think philosophically, like the plan with the 49ers as they look to make another Super Bowl push, another run at trying to get back to winning this thing, it has to be to look at their defensive line, right? And I think getting rid of Arik Armstead isn't a move about, oh, they're going to be less, they're going to make a philosophical change, right? Like Shanahan and Lynch, their philosophy when they came in is we're going to build this killer Super Bowl defensive line, and that's how we're going to go win a Super Bowl. And every year they try to put it back together and build that defensive line and go get the Super Bowl. And every year they come close and they fall a little bit short. This went wrong. This went wrong. I don't think that philosophical that getting rid of Armstead indicates that now they're changing it up. They're not going to go build that defensive line. I think it indicates, like you said, with the Silver tweet and what you just said, that they're all in on one of these big moves for a Danielle Hunter or something like that. And I think they're going to be all in this offseason on rebuilding this defensive line because Steve Wilkes firing or not, them playing well in the Super Bowl or not, Rob, I think they were disappointed with their defensive line the entire season. I feel like they think that that was like the one thing that they've done so well this entire era that they didn't have at the same level this year. And they played great in the Super Bowl, but they didn't play at that level pretty much the entire year. And that's why they went and got Javon Hargrave. And so I'm assuming that they're going to put an emphasis on trying to get that defensive line to be fully stocked up and deep and nasty once again.
I do wonder if maybe, look, they don't end up getting the defensive lineman and then maybe they shift and they say, hey, do we try and get a safety? Do we, they were sniffing around. Who is the safety that they have a visit scheduled with? Rashawn Jenkins,
right?
The Jags. Like, do they say, hey, you know what? We couldn't get the D lineman. And so now we're going to have to invest somewhere else. So maybe we have to just make do with what we have on the defensive line and go hard after corners and safeties.
Right, but I look at Jenkins as more as like, okay, he's going to be like a depth, veteran piece. I don't know that he's going to get starter money and come in and be like, okay, they signed Rashawn Jenkins as a starter. I'm assuming that the defensive line player they go get, Rob, he's going to have a contract distinction that's going to delineate him as the starter, if that makes sense. Like, he's going to get money in free agency that no matter how bad he is, he's going to, like Isaiah Oliver. It took so much for them to supplant him as the starter because of the money he got. He got guaranteed money.
Yeah, even though Shanahan said before the season even started, he's not a guaranteed starter.
Right.
Let me throw up the Silver tweets on the screen. I expect the Niners to approach free agency with a sense of urgency at edge rusher, he said. That doesn't mean they'll jump immediately and overpay. They want value. Still, with players like Danielle Hunter, Jonathan Greenard, and Leonard Floyd out there, they'd be poised to move quickly at the right price. But keep in mind, he tweeted this yesterday. So, some of it's a little outdated now that free agency has actually started. He mentioned specifically Armstead. He also mentioned the Chargers, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. I want no part of Joey Bosa unless he's way cheap. He's older and he's always hurt.
Go ahead. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue on Joey Bosa and then hit on Khalil Mack as well.
Yeah, it's just he's old and he's hurt. And like that's not a good combination. And he's presumably going to be expensive. Like, just because he's Nick Bosa's brother, like, I know we're all hopped up on like this family, like, oh, we got to draft Luke McCaffrey and Brendan Rice and Frank Gore Jr. Now let's get Joey Bosa. Like, no.
So for me, of those names, I'm totally with you on the Joey Bosa. I don't like where his contract is. I don't like where his health has been trending. I don't think that that's a move that's a great Madden franchise move. I don't know that one necessarily makes sense on paper for the 49ers, even though, yes, in theory, Joey Bosa is a great player. And yes, in theory, him and Nick Bosa playing together is really cool. I like Leonard Floyd the best of those names. I think Leonard Floyd's already 31. He got cut by the Rams late in the offseason. He didn't really get money from the Bills. I think it would be a short-term deal, a 1 or 2 year deal. And I think if you're going the route of Danielle Hunter, I think he would be looking for a long-term deal. He was trying to get one for a while from the Vikings. It never materialized because of injuries and stuff and then them giving him a 1 year deal and all of that. So that didn't work. So of those guys, I like Leonard Floyd. He's highly productive. If we want to go to our argument from last week, there is a Brandon Staley connection. So if Brandon Staley is the assistant head coach, they seem to let their defensive coordinators put their foot down and get one big signing, right? D'Amico got Samson Ebukam. Steve Wilkes got Isaiah Oliver. Maybe Brandon Staley gets Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd's an excellent player. So I think he would be solid. He's had 30 sacks in the last 3 years.
I certainly like that better than Joey Bosa, 100%. Also,
especially because it's a 1 year deal. That's what I'm thinking. 1 to 2 year deal because he's 31.
Mike Silver also said, keep an eye on DJ Jones, who's likely to be cut by the Cowboy. Of course, 49ers fans know DJ Jones well. He also pointed out as outside corner, or corner in general, I should say, Azeez Al-Shire, he said, might be too expensive. And he also had a little nugget, Vish, and I want to talk to you about this, too, as we wait for 49ers news.
Nixon's an all-pro returner and a good nickel. So Nixon would be a starter signing and an all-pro returner.
Right, and the Niners reportedly are sniffing around a bunch of returners. Deontay Hardy was mentioned. Nixon was mentioned. So we know we need one because Ray McLeod is going to be gone, which thank you very much. Mike Silver said, there is no clear sense of whether they will pay Brandon Aiyuk. Again, it may come down to value, or rethink their approach at the position. They have 11 draft picks, some of which can serve as trade capital. That jumped out at me. John Lynch has been very quick to remind everybody, yeah, we like Brandon Aiyuk, but we've got a lot of high-priced guys in the books, and we're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. I do wonder if maybe, Brandon Aiyuk won't get the extension. Maybe they'll trade him with some picks, or something will happen where they're not going to extend him, because that note by Silver in there is not in there by accident, Vish.
Yeah. And I think this is a great tidbit because it brings up a great conversation, because I think Brandon Ayuk's an excellent player. I think on paper, the 49ers should pay Brandon Aiyuk, right? But I think he brings up it coming down to value as a great conversation, because this draft is bringing receiver prospects that are out of this world special. Marvin Harrison Jr. is out of this world special. Malik Neighbors is really special. And Rome Odunze is also really, really good. These are more talented and more gifted prospects as receivers than Brandon Aiyuk is. I say that with all due respect, because Brandon Aiyuk is a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. But I also think that there's special physical traits to these three guys that Brandon Aiyuk doesn't have that allows them to maybe reach a ceiling Brandon Aiyuk won't. And they're cheaper and they're younger. So if the 49ers look at the value proposition and say, well, we know Rome Odunze is going to be there at 8, and we feel like we can get up to 8 and not have to pay Brandon Aiyuk, and we can get a first for Brandon Aiyuk, well, that changes the conversation of paying Brandon Aiyuk, doesn't it? It doesn't mean that Brandon Aiyuk isn't great. It means, well, instead of having to pay Brandon Aiyuk, we can have 4 years of Rome Odunze. And so that's the way this is going down. I think that's what Silver's explaining, and I think it's a very interesting point because I wonder how the 49ers will be able to speculate that. And I think a lot of what goes on in free agency is going to dictate that, especially when you got Trent Baalke, one of the deepest receiver drafts of all time. We know he can't draft wide receivers for anything. DeAndre Smelter, cough. Ronald Johnson, cough. AJ Jenkins, cough, right? We know he can't draft we know he can't draft wide receivers. So he goes and instead of drafting one of the best receiver drafts we've seen in a while, he goes and gives Gabe Davis, a quite mediocre player, 3 years, $50 million.
The Aiyuk thing is really interesting because this is why I'm like, Aiyuk is healthy all the time. He plays every game. He plays hard. He blocks. He makes big catches. Why would there be no clear sense on whether they will pay him? Right?
Right.
Like
it should be clear cut. He's checked every box.
Right.
You're right.
So if that is the case and there's no clear sense that they're going to pay him, then I think Mike Silver's telling you, like, just, don't assume this is a done deal. And then to mention the draft picks right after, which literally says some of which can serve as trade capital, like, I don't know. That jumped out at me. I seem to be the only one, but that's okay. I'm okay on that branch.
Do you think with Aiyuk, it's just a matter of situation? Because I do think in a lot of ways it is situation that we're even discussing something like this, especially when you go through the fact that like whatever conventional box players usually need to check to be paid, Aiyuk has checked it, let alone the fact that he's a first round pick that the team traded up for. So you would think that they have all the more reason to market him as a player that they gave a second contract to because of how invested they are in him. And yet we're at this weird 3 years, $39 million. I'm sorry.
A little less.
I kept reading the $50 million because Handyman said it.
Gabe Davis is a little less. So anyway,
it was 13 a year. Thank you for that. But the thing with Aiyuk is, am I overthinking this, or do I believe that if it was a situation where it was as cut and dry as we believe it should be on paying him, there wouldn't be this question of we don't know what they're going to do, like you just described Silver saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that exists with Brandon Aiyuk? What do you think holds the 49ers back? Because with a guy like Bosa, and I don't want to compare Bosa and Aiyuk because they're not the same, but with a guy like Bosa, it was always cut and dry that they're going to pay him. Now, some people at the time got frustrated with Bosa's actions and started convincing themselves that Bosa was actually not that good, which was a load of crap. But for the most part, everybody was like, yeah, they're going to pay Bosa. And the Niners were like, yeah, we're going to pay Bosa. Everybody knew Bosa deserved it. Like, it was cut and dry. Brandon Aiyuk has seemingly checked every box that should make it cut and dry, and yet it's not cut and dry. What is that thing that's holding them back with him? What do you think it is?
Replaceability. It's easier to replace. Wide receivers are becoming like running backs now. How many drafts in a row have we said, oh my God, this draft is loaded with wide receivers?
Every year.
It's easier. It's way easier to replace a wide receiver than it is to replace an elite pass rusher. Way, way easier. Kyle Shanahan said it at one point. He's like, look, I can get receivers open. I can't scheme pass rush. I can't fake it, I think is what he actually said. So I think Kyle thinks we don't need to go absolutely crazy. I think they paid Debo because they thought he was going to be able to consistently do something that not a lot of guys can do, which is run the ball out of the backfield and be a threat on the ground and through the air. I think that's why they paid Debo. I don't think clearly they don't do that with Aiyuk, which I actually think that they could have done it a little more if they wanted to.
You know what I also think it is? It's the scheme point with Debo versus Aiyuk. No matter what, and I feel like part of Debo's, like people talk about the limitations in Debo's skill set. I think part of Debo's limitations is that he's been used the same exact ways for 4 or 5 years, and that's been caught up to, and he never evolved any other parts of his game. and his usage didn't really evolve. So people have really caught up to what he does, and they're able to do that. But he's still Debo, right? Because there's something that you can't account for, you can't scheme for. Like when you throw a 6-yard crossing route to him versus the Eagles, and he breaks a tackle and goes 48 yards and accelerates past everybody for a touchdown. That's something that you can't account for in the game. That's just Debo being Debo. There's something you can't put X's and O's on it. That's not pen to paper. That's his special quality. I think the fact that he has that and the fact that Shanahan can't scheme up for that, whereas Aiyuk's special quality is the fact that he runs excellent routes and he runs them urgently. Well, Shanahan always says, I can get receivers open. I can put them in space. So even though Aiyuk runs excellent routes, they also put Aiyuk in very good situations usually to run good routes. And it's a combination of that. And so I think that's where the Debo versus Aiyuk, I think some of the hesitation is that even though Aiyuk might frankly just be a better player than Debo at this point, Debo's skill is not something that you can like ask somebody else to do. You can scheme, you can work around, you can approximate, you can get somebody to do. Only Debo can do that. Whereas Aiyuk's skill, even though he's exceptional at it and he's one of the 5 or 6 best route runners in the sport, you can get another route runner who's not as good as Aiyuk, less cheap, put him in good positions to run routes, and he may not win as clean as Aiyuk. He may not win as effectively as Aiyuk, but he can win enough for you to still feel like your offense can be the same. And I think that's the difference. And it's a weird thing because like we talked about, Aiyuk checks every box. He's young. He's ascending. He plays every game. This should be a situation where you pay him. But when you're talking about only paying the best of the best players on the 49ers, they seem to value these one-of-one skills in their players. And I don't know what Aiyuk's like superhuman, super saiyan skill is that makes him just invaluable.
I would agree. And I think that's how the 49ers look at it as well. Getting back to some of the free agent news today, I'm just seeing on NBC Sports Bay Area that the Niners were in on Christian Wilkins before he agreed to go to the Raiders. Jordan Elliott has the story up on NBC Sports Bay Area now that the Niners were in on him. Joe Shad had it also. So clearly it's an area where the 49ers wanted to improve. They wanted to invest. They wanted to improve. You know, they have been able to mainly, when they go after their targets, Vish, they don't miss, usually. Maybe it's at a point now where people are like, I don't know about the Niners. Maybe they're kind of on the downside, have to rebuild. Maybe they're not as attractive a target as they once were, and maybe they're not going to be able to get those guys this time.
I just think there's a cap to how much guaranteed money that they can just be doling out. And
well,
that's
that too.
Really the problem.
Fish and chip.
He's right. Brandon Aiyuk is elite at the top of his routes. But this goes back to the conversation of like, and I've heard Chris Sims talk about it primarily during the draft, and I've heard him talk about it because he's heard Shanahan specifically talk about it. The value of route running with a wide receiver, especially when you're talking about putting receivers in condensed splits, a lot more bunches. You're able to put receivers off the ball a lot easier today. You're able to motion them to create space. It's a lot easier to run routes for a wide receiver in 2024 than it's ever been in the NFL. And a guy like Shanahan thinks he can create space for wide receivers. So as elite as Aiyuk is at running routes, he feels like he could take a good route runner and create space for him as well, like he has done for Brandon Aiyuk earlier in his career. Whereas Debo's skill after the catch, nobody in the NFL, you don't find year after year, there's a guy that gets compared to Debo after the catch in the NFL or in college football. And then you actually watch him and you're like, no, there's nothing like Debo after the catch in the NFL or in college football. And so that's what it is. I'm not even saying that it's correct or wrong, Rob, because I don't know. I would pay Brandon Aiyuk unless you're convincing me with a conversation that's like, they're getting Malik Neighbors, they're getting Rome Odunze, they're getting Brian Thomas, they're getting Marvin Harrison. But I think that's why the 49ers thinking is like this, because otherwise I feel like it would be like they're going to pay Brandon Aiyuk. It just won't happen now. There needs to be dominoes that are going to fall, because that's how I remember these reporters writing about the Debo thing for the most of it. Even when he requested a trade, they didn't seem to make it obsessively negative, like Debo was going to be gone. That's how they wrote about the Bosa. With Aiyuk, a lot of people have been like, we'll see. We're not sure. He could. He may not.
Fish and Chips is back. He says Shanahan is limited on assessment of players, period. I mean, look, the Niners have one of the best rosters in the league, and Kyle Shanahan has a big hand in that. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Just because we're frustrated with him because they didn't win the Super Bowl, like, let's not act like, oh my God, he's terrible. Like, we're not going to do that.
He spotted Brandon Aiyuk.
Right. And I mean, honestly, before last year, I feel like the Aiyuk love was not like it is now. He had an incredible year last year. I just think it's more easy to replace Brandon Aiyuk. It just is. Like, I'm sorry, especially when his elite thing is something like you just pointed out is easier to do through scheme than it's ever been before. So I think, frankly, they may just say, sit tight, Brandon. You're on the 5th-year option. We're good with you. We'll see you next year.
They could do that too, and then they could possibly roll over money and create money to franchise him and try to get a first-round pick for him the very next year. And frankly, that might even be their best move because no rookie receiver is probably going to come in and outperform Brandon Aiyuk just next year. And if the goal is to win the Super Bowl in 2025, Brandon Aiyuk probably gives you the best option of doing that. Yeah.
Let's get into a couple of other things the 49ers actually did do today. They restructured the contract of Fred Warner. Actually, they did that a couple days ago, but that is done. And congratulations to the Warners, by the way. Just had a baby boy. So congrats to Fred and Sydney, his wife.
That's awesome.
That's awesome for them. I don't know. Somebody asked in the chat. I apologize. How much Mike Owings asked, how much cap did they open up by restructuring Warner? I don't know yet. That information hasn't come out. So we don't know. But that is a thing that they did. They are also, Vish, doing something that makes me very happy, which is, as you know, talking to Kyle Juszczyk about restructuring his deal, a.k.a. taking a freaking pay cut because he needs to. So shout out to the Niners for doing that. I don't blame Kyle Juszczyk if he doesn't want to, but if I'm the Niners, I say, go ahead. What's the market for a fullback on the wrong side of 30? See what you can find out there, Kyle, and then come back to us.
Man, that one seemed personal.
I don't have any problem with Kyle Juszczyk. I have a problem with people's attachment to Kyle Juszczyk and overstating what they think he does in the offense.
Like I said, I still think it was about him being the big signing in 2017, and it was about this extendo sell of this new regime and selling this perfect face, right? He's handsome. He speaks excellent. He went to Harvard. It makes sense. And he's been a great representation for it. He's done his role very well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he takes the pay cut because honestly, there's no other scheme that's going to utilize him and value him like that. And he also is a good player in his role. It's just unfortunate that his role and his money, it's the Armstead situation, right? Like Armstead's an excellent player, but the Niners can't afford to have him miss 6 games a year, be making that much money for where his production was at this point on the wrong side of 30. That's kind of Juszczyk's situation. It isn't personal, it's business.
Right. Exactly. It isn't personal. It's business. And I'm not in the business of paying fullbacks who are off the field more than they're on the field $8 million a year or whatever the hell his salary is. Like, seven. Yeah, that's much better. Beats and Meats says, sure, you can find another ball catcher like you, but what wide receiver is going to block like him? I don't pay wide receivers to block, right? Like St. Elmo's Steakhouse in Indianapolis is a steakhouse known for its cocktail sauce. I want my steakhouse to be known for its steak. All right. So great that Aiyuk blocks. That's awesome. Good on him. But I ain't paying you top of the market money because you block.
He's not even the best wide blocking receiver on the team.
Well, yeah, that's Juwan Jennings.
So it's like, why can't they find another receiver that blocks like him? It's blocking is a mindset. It's a team culture.
I like this comment from W. Kung YT who says, BA's Super Saiyan power is circus catches off cornerbacks' face masks.
I go back and forth on this one all the time, Rob. Like, I go back and forth on it all the time. Because, again, like, if you're telling me trading Brandon Aiyuk involves getting a Brian Thomas or getting a Malik Neighbors or getting a Rome Odunze or getting, Marvin Harrison, that's a pipe dream. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like trade Brandon Aiyuk. But otherwise, at the same time, it's like, what more could a player do to deserve a second contract than what Brandon Aiyuk has done?
It's not about that. It's
But
not
you can't tell
about
me,
that.
looking at the state of the 49ers, though, and looking at all of their weapons, of all of the guys that you would want with a big contract at this point, is Brandon Aiyuk not the one? He's the
Yes, because he's the
healthiest.
youngest
He's
and the
the most
healthiest.
consistent. He's the youngest. He's the only one that you feel like is still ascending, whereas you feel like Debo is declining. You feel like Kittle is declining. Not that they're declining to the point that they aren't still very good, but they're not the best that they have ever been in their career, whereas you feel like Ayuk
Right.
might still have ways to go to get the best he's ever been. But like at the same time, it also involves possibly giving him like 27, $28 million.
That's what it's about. It's not just, okay, have you played well? Then we'll re-sign you. It's about, have you played well? Like, for example, if there was a Brandon Aiyuk clone that was willing to come to the 49ers for $10 million a year,
Oh,
they would cut Brandon Aiyuk and sign the clone. So it's like
right.
it's not, it's about how replaceable you are. We got news, not on the 49ers, but on someone the 49ers are going to play twice a year, Vish. The Rams, Jonah Jackson. They've agreed with Jonah Jackson, a guard, on a 3-year, $51 million deal with $34 million guaranteed. The Rams are making moves. They got cap room now. They got draft picks. Here come the Rams.
One, hell of a move. Two, the Rams were at their best when they ran the football, when they had big Roger Saffold. That was, I think, one of McVay's first signings, mauling as their right guard with Todd Gurley. Kyron Williams is a stud. That's quite the move. Steve Avila, their pick, was very, very good. The Rams' offensive line has quietly become very good again. You
need
get
to protect
Stafford some
Stafford.
protection.
Yep.
You got Puka. You got Cooper Kupp maybe getting healthy. The Rams are going to be good next year. Dang.
The Rams understand the assignment, right? We've got a running back now that we can do some things with. We're going to run the hell out of the ball. We've got a quarterback that still has an arm that can put the ball anywhere on the field we need. So we're going to protect him. We've got, Puka is our number 1 wide receiver. That's secured now. Cooper Kupp is a great number 2 wide receiver to have. The Rams are going to be good. They know what they're doing, man. And part of the Niners' aggressiveness comes from the Rams' aggressiveness.
Mhm.
John Lynch has talked about this, how like we had to start taking big swings, like with the McCaffrey thing. Kyle's reaction is, damn, that's a lot of picks for McCaffrey. And they looked at Kyle and they were like, do you want the Rams to get him? And he was like, shoot, no. Okay, let's go do it. So like, yeah, the Niners are paying attention to this for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And I wonder if this starts to change the dynamics of their matchup, because this matchup has been dominated by the Niners for so long. And it's been because the Rams have been too small to match up with the Niners. The Niners are just as fast as the Rams, but they're bigger and stronger. And they kind of push the Rams around basically every time they play. Now the Rams are getting bigger. And we saw in their last matchup, the one the Rams were finally able to win, Carson Wentz versus Sam Darnold. Not that meaningful. The Rams were able to somewhat hold their own on both lines of scrimmages against the 49ers. In fact, they were able to run the ball on the 49ers. Again, backups on backups, not necessarily indicative of what's going to happen. But I do think the fact that the Rams are getting bigger, they're getting bulkier, they're going to start to run the football. And the Niners are losing a big linchpin of their size in Arik Armstead. I wonder if it changes the dynamics of this matchup. And then, by the way, I just wanted to add, someone in the comments said that I said Joey Bosa was 31. No, I said Leonard Floyd was 31.
Yeah, but Joey Bosa's 28. He's an old 28, by the way, and 30 is old in the NFL. When you've got a guy that's been banged up as much as Joey Bosa, that 28 looks a lot different than some other people. The Rams are also signing tight end Colby Parkinson to a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. Rams, man, they're going out. They got cash to spend. They got money to burn, and
It's
the
crazy,
Rams,
right?
They
One
don't
off season that they save, and then they're right back to just doling out money.
The money burns a hole in the pocket, man. If they've got money and picks, they're using them or they're trading them. And the Rams are making moves. It's interesting. I wonder, do the 49ers, how do they respond to all this? Because some teams are okay sitting back and, they have their prices on players and they don't go over those prices and they let those guys sign with other places. Do the Niners start to panic a little bit and say, hey, we got to do something? Did I lose you, Vish?
No, I'm here.
Oh, well, I thought you were going to talk.
Well, you said, are the Niners going to panic? Are they going to do something? I thought you were going to say something, so I was just waiting for you to have your something, and then you went radio silent on me for a second.
Hold on. I'm seeing the Packers are expected to sign Josh Jacobs.
Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
All right.
What a
That's
move.
surprising.
What a move.
Oh, Bryce Huff is signing with the Eagles.
Boo.
Oh, man, that hurts. I was hoping Bryce Huff would sign with the 49ers.
I hate that.
I don't like that for the 49ers.
Okay, so speaking of the 49ers, I actually think it's more about the smaller moves that they make. Like, I think the 49ers last year, one of their big issues was that they couldn't solidify the nickel corner position, right?
Right.
I was not a fan of Isaiah Oliver from day one, and that was a terrible signing. Going and getting somebody like Keyshawn Nixon that's going to make a difference in the return game. I think he's just better, more explosive than Ray McLeod, and then he can start at nickel. He's a good, decent player. He can maybe start at nickel, actually. I'm not 100% sure of that, but he's a decent player. Like, I think that would be a good signing if he provides the value of capably filling, being a returner, and being a nickel player. Because I think a lot of, like, the Niners don't need a monumental piece, if you know what I'm saying. I think they have their monumental pieces. I think it's about getting better secondary contributors, because I think what happened last year in their roster is that it got a little top heavy by the end of the year. The secondary contributors that used to be there, right? Like when they went to the Super Bowl in 2019, their nickel was K'Wan Williams. That was a top 5, 6, 7 nickel in the NFL. Their free safety was Jimmy Ward. That was a top 5 safety in the NFL. They had their players that weren't considered stars were still premium players at their position. That's slipped down as they've had to pay other guys and make other decisions and draft guys and develop them. So I think those would be the kinds of signings that I would find truly valuable to the 49ers in free agency. Nixon maybe wasn't the perfect example, Rob, but I don't even know if it's about getting one huge name at this point now that they've especially missed out on Greenard and Wilkins. I think it might be just more about how can we find our version of another Arden Key? How can we find our
Right.
version of another Omenahue? And that was a trade. But you know what I'm saying? How can we get an Ebukam where we sign a young guy? We maybe overpay him for what we are paying him for, but we are underpaying him for what we think we can develop him to be. And then we develop him to become that, and he turns into a 10-sack player and goes and gets a $12 million contract. So something like that.
You can't have it both ways, Vish. You can't say we really need to get somebody opposite Nick Bosa, and then you keep shopping in the bargain bin at Walmart. Like, no, don't go through the bin and try to find that one diamond in the rough DVD under the pile of crap. Go sign Danielle Hunter. Sign it, like Bryce Huff would have been a nice player, but there would still be a little projection there because he really only has the one good year, which he had last year with the 10 sacks. And
here's my fear. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
I'll touch on Hunter after.
Yeah, he would have been good. I would rather say, give me Danielle Hunter. I know what this guy is. Will there be a little bit of decline? Maybe, but that also may be offset by the fact that Bosa's on the other side. And I would have been fine with that. But, Bryce Huff is gone. Christian Wilkins is gone now. Greenard, gone. The options are getting slim for the 49ers. Maybe Danielle Hunter's just sitting back and he's like, yep, my asking price just went up by another $2 million.
The thing with Hunter is he's what, 28, 29? He's
29.
Right?
He'll turn 30 in October.
29. I just feel like giving Hunter at 29, I think from my estimation, based on what's happened with Danielle Hunter in his career, I would assume he's looking for a long-term contract right here, right now. And I wouldn't want to be committed in the business. Not that he isn't a great player. This is isolated to that. Danielle Hunter is an outstanding player. Of course, I would want Danielle Hunter on the 49ers, but I wouldn't want to be in the business of having to have Danielle Hunter as another large contract aged somewhere between 29 and 30 something.
Well, who the hell do you think you're getting that's going to be good and cheap?
But that's where I kind of want to move. I kind of pivoted off of the idea now that they missed off of Wilkins or Greenard, who's a couple years younger. Either I would like them to go the Leonard Floyd route, which is a much more shorter term deal for a quote unquote bigger name pass rusher, or I would like them to then go to the bargain bin, unfortunately. And I don't necessarily have the full list of free agents in front of me right now. Maybe I can have that be more prepared next time, but I would then, start looking at some value signing players.
Nick Ellert says Hunter's older than Bosa. LOL, can't make this up. Daniil Hunter has only failed to play a full season in 2 years of his entire career, Nick. That's the difference.
Only the year he tore. Wait, what's the other one? He tore his pec the 1 year.
His first year in the league, he played 14 games.
Oh.
And then in 2021, he only played 7. Every other year of his career.
That was the torn pec year. I wasn't even aware he missed games as a rookie. That's good to know.
Every other year of his career, he plays every single game. That's the difference in Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa's hurt all the time. Just because he's a name that you know. Like, stop. No.
Also, skill set wise, Joey and Nick is a little redundant. Nick's a little more compact, a little more explosive, a little stronger. Joey's a little longer, maybe a little more creative with his pass rush moves, but they are a little redundant with how they win and how they go after the quarterback and how quickly they win and rush. I wouldn't mind having something a little different on the other side of Nick Bosa, something a little more explosive and powerful. Daniil Hunter brings that.
Joey Bosa has 9 sacks his last 2 years. Daniil Hunter had 16.5 sacks last year. Sorry. Like, Joey Bosa's a cool name, but no, we got the better Bosa already. We don't need any more.
To be fair, Daniil Hunter did play on a defense that played cover 0 more than anybody in the NFL.
That's fine. Are you telling me he can't rush the passer?
No, never. Great player.
So with this Huff move to the Eagles now, do you think that what's going to happen with Sweat? What's going to happen with Reddick? You think one of those guys is going to hit the market? Maybe the Niners go that route?
I'm no longer even worried about the Eagles, Rob Guerrera.
Wow. Okay. How come?
Eagles leadership, they relied a lot to me on Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, Brandon Graham, and Lane Johnson.
True.
And those guys never got hurt. They never dissipated in how they played. They drafted 3 of them as first-round picks, and they were basically excellent start to finish. Graham was the only one who started off his career a little shaky, and then he turned into a great player and remained a great player. I think they're going to be missing that leadership. Nick Sirianni is clearly not a leader because he needs Big Dom to control his emotions.
Right.
I think Philadelphia, I think they're going to miss a lot. No way you can tell me Jalen Carter, looking at his history, Jalen Carter is one of the best players I've ever seen coming out of college football when he came out last year as a defensive tackle. Great player, had a great rookie year. There's no way you can look at his history, what went on with him at Georgia, and tell me that that's the leadership they're going to rely upon, especially with how things got a little shaky for them. They're another talented team. I don't believe as much in Jalen Hurts. I'm not worried about the Eagles. I think it's going to be a tough year for them.
Okay. I like that. I'm down for that. I don't think Jalen Hurts as a passer is that great. I think they were really hurt by losing their coordinators. And hopefully you're right, though. I want one less team to deal with in the NFC. I'm a little worried about the Bears defense. That's starting to look pretty damn good. I'll say that.
It's starting to look pretty good for sure.
Just a quick recap.
And with Caleb, they could be something for sure. I don't think so with Justin Fields, but
no, Fields is garbage.
Jeez.
Quick rundown. Josh, as a player, not as a person. Josh Jacobs signing with the Packers or will sign. Christian Wilkins is going to the Raiders. Bryce Huff to the Eagles. Jonah Jackson to the Rams. Gabe Davis to the Jags. Darnell Savage to the Jags. We didn't touch on that. The Commanders have a new center. Colby Parkinson is also going to the Rams. What are you hoping for? That's what I want to know from people.
But the Commanders losing a center, gaining a center. Guess who lost a center?
The Cowboys.
Exactly. So there's a move for
the Cowboys. Lost Tony Pollard. The Cowboys lost Tyron Smith. Like, the Cowboys are having a terrible offseason. Absolutely terrible. But I wasn't worried about them anyway. Are you worried about them?
No. I just wanted to mention that. I think Green Bay getting Josh Jacobs is a huge move.
It's a nice signing. We'll see if he can stay healthy. He's a really good running back for sure.
Great player. I think it's like the 49ers getting Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, no, he's not McCaffrey.
He's not McCaffrey. I'm just saying that he's going to have a similar kind of impact for them that McCaffrey has had. He's not as good as McCaffrey, but you talk about an excellent running back in that system. Matt LaFleur is seeing Kyron Williams with the Rams, good player. He's seeing McCaffrey, Hall of Famer with the 49ers, and he's going and getting himself one special player in Josh Jacobs.
Jacobs had 393 touches in 2022, had 270 last year, still played in 13 games for the Raiders. He's a really good player. He's had at least 1,100 yards from scrimmage every year of his career. He's a very, very good player. Packers, the NFC is going to be tougher this year, I think, than it was last year. I think
Oh,
that,
I think it's going to be way better.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too. I want to know from people in the chat, what are you hoping for the 49ers right now? Now that we've seen some of these moves that have been made, now that some names have come off the board, what are you hoping for as it stands on 2:15 Eastern on the first day of legal tampering? Because I don't know, I don't think everybody's all in on Danielle Hunter. I don't know what people are hoping for. That's why I want to know. You got nothing?
Oh, I thought you were looking for the chats. I was waiting for the chat's inputs to come in.
Oscar says he's hoping for Danielle Hunter. Brandon Vincent says Brian Burns trade, to be honest. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah,
I
that
would
would be
throw
sweet.
Aiyuk in that trade too if you needed to. I would absolutely do that. I would throw in a first round pick. I would like to get that done. Would you like to get that done?
Yeah. I think I would. I think I would as well. But that one I think is a little bit closer. I wanted it to be Jonathan Greener today. I think that's what I woke up today preparing myself for. I think that's what I'm refreshing Twitter for. And I think that's why I'm a little lost for words right now, because I
I've
think
never
there's a
seen you
part
at
of
a
me
loss
that's a
for
little
words before.
disappointed. I think I'm a little disappointed, Rob. I am quite. A part of it is also I'm refreshing Twitter every second of
Right.
the show, trying to see what's going on. So yeah.
Oscar says Tyron Smith would also be great. Technically, David Bakhtiari is going to be out there too if you need a tackle. The problem is the Niners are not going to get. They don't have the
Niners
money.
do play on grass, so maybe he will play.
Yeah. No thanks. Brisbee Life watching on Twitch. Shout out to the Twitch fam. Says I want to see a nickel corner and an interior offensive line help. And there are nickel corners out there too. I don't know. I don't know.
Percy
I wanted
Robinson's got a good comment on Josh Uche.
Oh, and I saw that who had the comment? I would
Percy
throw it up.
Robinson. What about the DE from New England? He's talking about Josh Uche there.
Oh, well, I apologize. For some reason, I can't see that one in my. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so they were in on him. I think Marco Martinez had that the Niners were in on him. They're at least investigating. He's more of a speed rusher, I believe, right?
Right.
Which we've seen work for this defense before. D Ford was obviously a speed rusher.
He's not that guy.
Well, I'm just saying, philosophically. For example.
I know. I get what you're saying. I think we didn't talk about this yet, and this kind of happened in the middle of last week, so it didn't really fit with the flow because it's not as much news today, because I feel like the Niners fans did their coping, or us included, did their coping about this. But it's the Colton McKivitz signing, the extension, 1 year, $7 million. I wasn't as shocked by this. And I said this last week. I don't know how you felt about this, Rob, but I felt like the Niners would look back. They would evaluate their situation. They would evaluate what offensive linemen are available and the cost of getting certain offensive linemen and where they are at with their roster, and feel like, well, it's going to be hard to upgrade from what we have immediately this year. I think you and I debated this, in fact, a little bit last week. I think that's kind of the decision they made. I think extending Colton McKivitz is, hey, we know he can start for us. He's not great, but we know he can start for us. That's how I would describe that.
But he wasn't going anywhere.
Right. And he plays multiple positions. They really like him.
Not well.
I think that helps, right? They really like him.
Who cares? I'm so tired of hearing of that. Oh, they like him. Irrelevant. Can he play? Is he worth the money? That's what matters. Who cares if you like a guy? John Lynch loves Solomon Thomas. He was a stiff as a player. Great person. Terrible player. I'm so tired of, do they like him? That's half the problem with this team.
They don't give him that extension without imagining that there's a good chance he could start for them both of the next 2 years.
Yeah, and that's a mistake. It's a mistake. He's not good. He allowed 47 pressures last year, Vish.
Right.
They only play 18 games.
But Coach T in the chat is bringing up a really good point, which was going to be my next point, but I'll give it to him because he brought it up before me. He played better in the playoffs. That's the funny part in all of this. Maybe
Great.
they're evaluating this off of his playoff performance. Maybe they're taking that and saying, okay, we have more confidence in the guy.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's take the smaller sample size and evaluate based on
I
that.
got to be a little bit of positive, dude, because that one baffled me because he did not have a great year. He is not a great player. He's
They
not a
cut
good
him
player.
from the team at one point. When the roster was worse, they said, "You're not good enough to be on this team." Now all of a sudden they brought him back and said, "You're the unquestioned starter."
You don't think he can improve though? He's improved
What's
since
he
then for
waiting
sure.
for?
He can
What's he
start.
waiting for,
He can
man?
start, man. He
Hey,
can start.
Colton.
He can start.
No, he could start because the 49ers made him a starter. I like
And
that. Oh, no.
And
He's
Jay,
not good.
look, the comments are killing it today. Jay's like, Colton extension is because Trent may be gone after this year.
Who
That's
cares?
right. Well, because they wanted to start Colton if they weren't going to be able to trade for Trent. Do you remember that? That was one of their many possibilities that they had written out in 2021.
He's
Or
not
20.
good. Like, would he start for any other team? No. If they cut him right now, you think guys would be refreshing? Oh my God. Let's see if we can go get Colton McKivitz. That's the guy I really want. No. Come on, man. No. He's a starter.
I'm just saying.
He's a
I'm just
starter
saying,
because
but
he started.
I think a lot of people are looking at like, oh, he might still not be the unquestioned starter. I think when you give a guy money like that, like I'm not saying they're going to not take a tackle or anything, but they're not going to be pushing. Like they're not going to go overpay or overdraft a tackle.
Yeah, I agree.
It's going to be, oh, this is the greatest value ever. Okay, see you, Colton McKivitz. It'll be one of those situations. Like when they got Weston Richburg after extending, who was the center that they had? Kilgore. Yeah, Daniel Kilgore. They gave him an extension and went and got Weston Richburg. It would be one of those situations.
I think it's a thing where they're like, we don't need to reach for this in the draft now because if it doesn't work out, we're okay.
That's what this is. That's what this is. And I think that's ultimately the situation is going to be that they feel like before the draft itself that, hey, we're not going to be in a situation where we're going to draft a guy that we're going to play right away in front of McKivitz anyway. So why put ourselves into making this a need? Why not have this status quo with McKivitz for the next couple of years? If there's a great right tackle where we're picking, let's pick him. Otherwise, let's not go searching for one. And that's the situation.
I think maybe the situation should be, let's go get that right tackle, right? Like it's like Brandon says in the chat, they're scared by McGlinchey. Go get him.
Where though, right? Like
in the draft. This is the best offensive line draft in 10 years.
This draft should be one. But I think that they're looking at this draft and thinking they got to go defensive line again. That's the problem.
Well, and they do need bodies there. They absolutely do need bodies on the defensive line. So, do you think?
But you're right.
Percy has a comment. Do you guys see the Eagles trading Josh Sweat to us, and how much would it take to get him? Before we get to that specifically, bigger picture question. Do you think teams are looking at the 49ers? They're like, you know what? This team has been to 2 Super Bowls since 2019. They've been in the NFC Championship game every friggin' year. We're not trading with them. We're not helping them get better. Or do you think teams are like, we don't care, we'll take them down?
No, I don't think it's like that. I think teams are like, we don't care, we'll take them down.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the teams have to look at the Niners, who at one point in this year might have felt unbeatable versus certain teams because they were steamrolling every team the same exact way for a lot of points of the season, right? Like we forget that, but they were steamrolling everybody. And it was like the same exact game script over and over again. I think the playoffs, the way Green Bay played them tight, the way Detroit played them tight, I think teams have got to be a lot more confident up against the Niners this year. And I think that there was a portion in this season where I don't think teams had any confidence that they could beat the Niners. And I think teams got to look at the Niners coming into next year and they got to feel like they got a chance in the NFC. Like I think that's why the Rams, for example, are making such aggressive moves because I think they feel like I think they feel closer to the 49ers than they felt like maybe a year ago when they tore it all down and were like, okay, we got to rebuild this. And I don't think they expected to get this close this fast. I mean, it's kind of crazy the stuff that happened for the Rams last year to make it all work. And then Stafford, Stafford might be one of the most injured quarterbacks I've observed, but his longevity combined with the injury doesn't even make sense to me, Bob. This is a guy that was supposed to have a career-ending back injury 5 years ago.
He plays hurt. really well too. That's another
Doesn't even affect him.
yeah, like he's really damn good, man. The fortunes of the 49ers would be so different if they had managed to secure Matt Stafford instead of the Rams. But
Yeah.
now
Especially
specifically,
because Stafford's longevity, like even the Rams weren't predicting this longevity with Stafford, right? Like after the elbow last year, they were trying to trade him last offseason. They gave him that contract for winning the Super Bowl, and that contract was one of the bad
right.
contracts they were trying to unload amongst the Jalen Ramseys and all of that, and the Leonard Floyds. And they couldn't unload it. And he comes back and he gets his elbow right, and he's playing great football again. Like that's where they really missed out. Like I know I was a big advocate from the trade from day one. I wasn't expecting longevity from Stafford like this. And now they're increasing it by investing in a Steve Avila, giving Kevin Dotson an extension, going and getting a Jonah Jackson. They're building with Puka Nacua. They're building a young core to give Stafford something to finish his career with, which is cool to see as a Stafford fan. Sucks to see as someone who doesn't want to see the Rams succeed.
Yeah, well, the Rams are going to be it's going to be a more difficult road for sure. To Percy's specific question, do you see the Eagles trading Josh Sweat to us, and how much would it take to get him? I think the
I
Eagles would
don't.
trade with anybody. I don't know off the top of my head like how good is Josh Sweat. Let me just
He is good. The issue with him is he jumps the snap a lot, and so he can be off sides a few times a game.
turns
And he relies on
27
that.
later this month.
And he relies on that. I think the thing about trading him though is I'm not sure that that would be a conversation today, especially when there's players available in the market. I think he becomes a conversation if you don't get who you like and you don't feel like you're in a draftable position and you wanted a really, really big bite at the apple with an edge player. And then I think that's when he starts to become a point in the conversation. But when guys are free, why are you talking about giving up assets to go get somebody else? That logic I don't really follow today. And then somebody is saying Kirk to Atlanta in the chat, which I think makes
Yep.
the NFC way stronger. This was the move I wanted Atlanta to make. I think Atlanta wins the NFC South with Kirk Cousins. Great
100%.
offensive line, tons of weapons. Love Raheem Morris. Excellent defense. That's what's underrated. They have a really, really good defense. And so, yeah, makes sense. This is what I wanted Atlanta to do, not get Justin Fields. I did not
tweeted
want them
out
to get Justin Fields.
weeks ago. I tweeted out if Cousins goes to the Falcons, because Florio had a tweet that said he thinks that Florio said signs were building that Kirk's going to Atlanta. And I said, if he does, they're winning. You don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be able to get the ball to freaking Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson? Oh my God, their stocks are going to go through the roof. All Kirk Cousins does is throw for 30 touchdowns and 4,000 yards every single freaking season, man.
Right.
Up until
in a
last
dome
year.
too.
Yeah. And up until last year, he was never hurt. Never. Like people hate on Kirk Cousins. He is better than he gets credit for. And
100%.
That
In
division goes
a
through
terrible
Atlanta.
division,
Yep.
terrible division with terrible quarterbacks, it just makes perfect sense for Raheem Morris. You said you tweeted it out 2 weeks ago. I tweeted it out the day Raheem Morris was hired. I said, you go get Kirk Cousins, you win the NFC South with Raheem Morris.
Yep. Do the Niners play the Falcons next year? I don't even know. Because then we're going to have to hear the at least we don't hear the Kirk Cousins to San Francisco rumors anymore.
No, now the Sam Darnold to the Minnesota Vikings rumors are going to start.
Yeah, great. Who cares? Good. Get him out. I was so happy they re-signed Brandon Allen. No, we don't.
Oh, me too. Now I hope they draft a guy late.
Yep.
And they develop him like the original Brock Purdy plan, but then Brock Purdy turned out to be your starter, possibly franchise quarterback, like what you didn't expect. But now you go to that. You have Brandon Allen for a year. You draft a young guy and have him be your third quarterback for a year. Hopefully he gets good enough to be your backup, and you don't have to pay Brandon Allen, and you don't have to worry about a quarterback for 2 or 3 years because you have Brock Purdy and the guy you drafted this year.
I totally agree with you. I know you got to run, Vish. By the way, I just want to point out
we got a few more minutes.
Okay,
so
good.
Yeah.
Just message me in the chat when you need to run.
Perfect.
We didn't talk about the Mac Jones trade. Mac Jones got traded for a 6th round pick. Trey Lance got traded for a 4th round pick. Just say that out loud. Trey Lance in his 4 starts got traded for a 4th round pick.
So that's terrible, right? That's terrible, right? Especially because, like, whatever you want to say about Trey Lance, and I think Mac Jones, like, there's a personality question mark that plays into him having a low market because he doesn't seem to be well-liked, whereas Trey Lance was universally well-liked.
Mm-hmm.
Mac Jones has played good quarterback in the NFL. Now, it might not be the highest ceiling quarterback. It might not be the quarterback you want, but he's played. Yeah, he can play. He's okay. He can start. It's one of those things. And it's not Rob. He starts because he starts. He's capable of being one of 32 in the NFL. Okay. But the thing that's funny to me is I was listening to Albert Breer with Dan Patrick this morning, and Albert Breer said the Patriots shopped Mac Jones a year ago.
Yeah.
So the year after, he's coming off Pro Bowl rookie, almost rookie of the year, rookie year with Josh McDaniels. And then year 2, I feel like most of us attributed it to the Joe Judge, Matt Patricia situation. And Breer says, and Breer's usually right on, I trust his reporting, that the 6th round pick was Mac Jones's market a year ago. Before this catastrophic year, that was his market. So it didn't increase, it didn't change because this year was a catastrophe. That's even crazier to me, knowing that a year ago Trey Lance was traded for a 4th.
Unbelievable. But shout out to John Lynch. Way to go, man. Maybe it was only one team, but you found the team. So congratulations to you.
You know what's funny? I after that trade, and I don't know that I said it fully. I might have said it was probably a little facetious in how I said it, but I was like, Shanahan and Lynch are a little giddy like thieves in the night. The way they're talking about getting a 4th round pick for Trey Lance, like they look like at the end of the day, like, look, we robbed a bank by getting a 4th round
Right.
pick for Trey Lance. Well, I don't know that I said it that way then, but a year later, I'll say it that way now. They knew what they were doing when they got a 4th round pick for him. They knew they're that little bit of giddiness. It wasn't anything at Trey Lance, even though I may have been like, hey, what are you doing? Like, this is so sad for Trey Lance. And I still do feel bad for Trey Lance, but it wasn't anything at him. It was just, holy cow, we robbed a bank by getting a 4th round pick right now for him.
Right. Like, let's not talk about it in case they take it back.
Yeah.
Chris Waddell
This
says,
isn't real.
long time no see, guys. Rumors I've seen. They're in on Hunter and a reunion with DJ Jones. Nice to see you guys hard at it. I've been in on the San Francisco Giants now. Stats start a Giants show, give up on the Mariners. Actually, funny you should mention that, Chris, because I actually am starting a Seattle Mariners podcast, believe it or not.
With who?
There's a company called Sick Media that asked me to do a Mariners podcast for them. So I'm hopping on board. I'm going to be doing that. So I'm dipping my toe in the baseball waters, but that's another day for another time.
Wow,
would you be happy with
Mr. Seattle Sports?
Would you be happy with DJ Jones and Daniil Hunter? That'd be pretty good.
I think Daniil Hunter would be great. I think DJ Jones would be solid, but I would love for them to then go back to the draft and draft a DJ Jones like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think DJ Jones to me is just another rotation body. I think you can draft a DJ Jones in every draft. And I think I would love for them to still do that in this draft, whether they get him or not. But Hunter would be the one. I think they could sign another Jones. I don't necessarily know the right name for you, but Jones is identifiable for us because he played for the Niners and he was a good player. Like, I'm sure there's other approximations of Jones available on the market. There's usually guys similar to Jones that are available every year, like 3 or 4 of them.
Thank you very much for the super chat, Chris. I've seen now that the Niners may enter into negotiations with Javon Kinlaw. I don't like that. I don't like that.
You don't like that? Okay. Because of the health?
Because of the health. To me, one healthy year does not prove anything. It's not like, oh, we don't have to worry about Kinlaw's knee anymore. Like, no, that still scares me. So I'd want to see the price on it. You know, obviously, like a top of the market deal, hell no. If they could get him at the right price, I'd be open to it, but I still worry about the knee.
If we're talking about low money, like a prove it kind of deal where he's like getting paid as a rotational piece, like that's a great body for them to have. He has size. He plays hard. He's a good rotational piece. Like, even in his best year, I think a lot of people, and it might have been me included, overextended to compliment him when he was just being a fine rotational piece instead of being a talented injured player. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, as cheerful an outlook as I've had in the past for his career, I think that rotational piece might just be Javon Kinlaw's best worth when healthy today. And that's fine, yeah, if he's cheap. Look at, Rob, can you call me Nostradamus? Like, what do you want to call me?
Diana Rossini tweeted out, So what now? Look for the Vikings to go after Sam Darnold, who has other suitors.
Pat Vish Kumaran had it
Why?
first. Pat Vish Kumaran had it first. Come on, Diana. Throw
Why
your guy a bone.
Why does Sam Darnold have other suitors? Based on what? Based on what? Him turning the ball over every time he got in a damn game for the 49ers?
The Shanahan guys were blown away with the precision of his footwork on play action plays in the week 18.
Were they blown away by him fumbling the ball away on the final drive?
No. And then that Ravens comeback. Did you see the way he threw the? Hey, I'm not saying anything, Rob. But until the end of the Ravens game, Rob. Until the end of the Ravens game, I'm not saying anything. But Sam Darnold was slinging it. He was slinging it. He looked good in that Ravens game. That comeback he brought back. Sam Darnold looked good. Darnold looked good.
Oh, really? What about all the fumbles and the turnovers? Like, why does Sam Darnold, if he makes one good slant pass, people are like, oh, he looks good, but he fumbles the ball away and he continues to suck, and people are like, oh, no, we don't talk about that. That doesn't count. We only talk about the two good throws he had. I am stunned that this dude keeps getting opportunities. Let me tell you, Vikings, go ahead. Sign Sam Darnold. Make him your starter. Enjoy irrelevance. Have at it. The 49ers had this guy in their building, and they were like, no, we'd rather have Brandon Allen as the backup quarterback.
No, they couldn't afford him. They couldn't afford him. The guy has a starter market right now. Look at this.
What a joke.
Rob, he's about to get guaranteed money from the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, we don't know that. I mean, she said they might go after. We got to see.
If he starts, Rob, he's getting, the Niners gave him guaranteed money. If he's backing up, he's getting guaranteed money.
Sam Darnold,
Sam Darnold lives the life.
Oh, Sam Darnold, he's so good.
Went to USC, a reputation built on going to USC.
Right, and he's been awful in the league.
He just hasn't gotten a chance, Rob.
Yes, he has. He's played 56 games before this year. What do you mean he hasn't gotten a chance? Sam Darnold
he had to suffer through Adam Gase, and then Joe Brady was a bad coordinator with Sam Darnold, but a good coordinator with Joe Burrow, but a bad coordinator with Sam Darnold, but then a good coordinator again with Josh Allen this year. So if you got it with Joe Brady, he was good, then bad, then good. But he's good now. But he was bad with Sam Darnold, but he's good with Josh Allen.
By the way, what is this comeback he led against the Ravens? He came into the game when it was 33-12, and the game finished 33-19. What comeback? What are you talking about?
He scored to make it 33-19. And then he almost had a late touchdown.
Yeah, and what happened?
Possibly made things interesting with an onside kick.
Instead of the touchdown, what happened instead? He almost had a touchdown, but guess what happened?
Yeah, I remember what happened.
What happened? No, tell people what happened. No. He threw a pick. He threw a pick.
It was late in the game. Sam was trying to make a play. He was trying to make a play to win the game, Rob.
He was at the 1 yard line.
That's the grit and toughness I love from my quarterbacks. He's like Brett Favre. Look at him going hugging his offensive lineman after
first and goal at the 2 yard line. And then what happens? On 4th and goal at the 17, because he took a horrible sack, he throws a pick. And yet, oh yeah, Sam, you said Sam Darnold looked good in that game. You said he let it come back. No, he didn't. But this is what happens with Sam Darnold. People, they lose their freaking mind. I don't know where their brain goes. Oh, my God. Get off of my team, Sam Darnold. Chris Waddell says, any thoughts of doing a more primetime show? I have a really hard time watching live during the day. I like doing the show in the afternoon with you, especially during the year, because we recap the game on Sunday. I'm going to try and do some more shows at night. I might do some solo shows later on in the day at night. We'll figure all that out.
Yeah. I'm good with the day slot. As long as I can work from home on Mondays.
There you go.
But in the case that I can't, then we will turn prime time for you, Chris.
Chris also says, did you buy your Sam Darnold jersey yet for Michelle? No, I haven't done that. I'm going to wait for him to sign, because then once he signs, the jersey will be even cheaper. But I will buy a Sam Darnold 49ers jersey, and I will wear it.
You got to get that custom made, bro. That's going to be expensive no matter what. That's a custom jersey.
Yeah, Sam Darnold. Maybe I'll just get 1-4. And I won't put the name on the back, and then hope.
Why not? Why not?
Hope the Niners get another guy that's good that wears number 14.
I think you should replace Kittle behind you with Sam Darnold.
I could do that. Throw it up there.
Do you think
That's
he
not
would
a bad
sign it for you?
dude.
I think
Sam,
he's heard what you said about him.
we were at the Super Bowl on opening night, and Levin and I are on the field, and all the 49ers players are around me. And Sam Darnold goes, "Hey, Rob, there's Sam Darnold. Do you want to go talk to him?" And I said, "No." And nobody was around him. Everybody was leaving Sam Darnold alone. Why? Because he's utterly and completely irrelevant. And
Well,
I
he
didn't
didn't
go
want to
talk
talk.
to him.
He didn't. You know what? He didn't want to talk to you either, Rob.
I wouldn't
He's
blame
heard
him
what
if
you
he
said
didn't.
about him.
I mean, I doubt he's heard it, but if he did, I wouldn't blame him. Why would he want to talk to me? But again, I'm not saying anything about this to Sam Darnold as a person. He seems to be a perfectly nice guy. But as a quarterback,
I don't know. I
he
don't know,
stinks.
Rob. This one seems a little personal to me.
No, it's not personal
You're
at all.
upset that the Minnesota Vikings are showing interest in the guy. Sam Darnold didn't ask. He didn't call up the Vikings and say, Diana Rossini, tweet right now. The Vikings are going to give me a job. This has to happen. Sam's just being Sam Darnold, and everybody else is paying Sam Darnold to be Sam Darnold.
Right. So that's my issue, is not really with him, because he's not doing anything wrong. If somebody wants to give him money, he should take it. Well, I would take it. But I'm mad at everybody else for looking around and being like, this is the guy we got to have, when he's been awful. He's been awful everywhere. He went to the Jets, awful. Carolina, awful. Baker came in and immediately ate his lunch and took his job. Gets to the 49ers, he's the exact same player he's always been. Don't give me his footwork on play action passes. He throws the ball to the other team. Who gives a shit about his footwork? Unbelievable, man.
You seem a little upset, man.
God, people lose their minds. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. All right. Anyway, Saquon Barkley is signing with the Eagles. Is that a real thing that happened? Oh, he just tweeted out a couple of Eagle heads. Yep. Looks like a 3-year, $37.75 million contract that could be worth more with incentives. What do you think of that?
I'm interested. I'm interested by that, but I want to see how the Eagles offensive line comes together without Jason Kelsey. I think so much of their unity and their ability to play together had to do with him. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see anybody else play center. I don't know if they're going to move Landon Dickerson there, or the guy they drafted a couple years ago from Nebraska, Cam Jurgens, is going to be the one that goes in to play center. And then with Barkley, I'm interested because, look, Philadelphia's run scheme is so heavily reliant on Jalen Hurts and that numbers advantage of having him being able to run. But I've never been so blown away. I've never really watched Saquon too ever since he's come out of college. But the one thing with Saquon is I've never been blown away by Saquon's vision and his ability to create. You're blown away by his just pure physical gifts, but I'm not blown away by his consistent ability to get 2 or 3 yards per run, just find little cracks, holes, and just be a consistent chains mover the way a McCaffrey is, the way a Gore used to be back in the day. He's a little bit more Adrian Peterson home run or -2. He bumps it for 68. And I don't necessarily know that that's what the Eagles need. I think the Eagles offense in a lot of ways sometimes needs that consistent 4 or 5 yards, 4 or 5 yards, 4 or 5 yards. So that's where I'm not sure how the fit's going to look. But I also say this as someone who hasn't just turned on Saquon and watched Saquon in a long time. I've been aware of what he's doing. I've watched his games live, but I haven't paid attention completely to how well he's playing.
The Vikings released a statement. Kirk holds a special place. Blah, 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 blah. Who cares?
Man.
Chris Maldonado, YouTube channel member. Shout out to Chris and all our YouTube channel members, by the way. If you want to become one, it's less than $3 a month. Please hop on board. You get priority comment response, custom emojis, membership badges. We really do appreciate it. It says, sorry, not trying to spam, just checking in on my lunch break. Anything about any big names for the Niners? Much love and respect to all. Thanks for everything. No, not really. Danielle Hunter is the name that keeps getting mentioned with the 49ers, but he's the biggest player that I've seen them attached to so far, Vish.
Yeah, 100%. And I honestly don't know, other than a Wilkins or a Greenard, which I think would have been a little bit of a dream too for the Niners. They might have gone at it aggressively, but I think that they could only go at it to a point, whereas a team like the Raiders can be all in on basically going all the way up to outbidding people for Christian Wilkins because they're desperate for him. I think besides that, it was always going to be a little quiet at the early part because some of these bigger names, splash names that are going to get signings, the Niners don't really need to overspend on Kobe Parkinson,
That's fair. Antonio Gibson, by the way, is signing with the Patriots, according to Diana Rossini. So that running back
Dang.
hour, apparently.
Diana's having her way. Is she out reporting Shefty and
Dude,
Rap right now?
Diana is awesome, man. I'm not. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, she would be even more awesome if she credited me for the Sam Darnold to
Shut
Vikings.
up. Sam Darnold. Oh God, just because he's interested. That's
Maybe if
not
you
a thing.
talked to him during the Super Bowl, you could have broken that he was going to go to the Vikings, Rob. That's all I'm saying.
Worth it. I regret nothing.
Yeah.
I
By the
feel
way, that all of that above was sarcastic. I just
yes,
speculated it.
of
Yeah.
course. Beats and Meat says, does Kyle quit the Niners tonight and become the head coach of Atlanta tomorrow? Yeah, breaking news. The Niners are trading Kyle Shanahan for Raheem Morris. That's not a thing that's going to happen.
He
All
would
right.
keep Raheem there with them.
I need to wrap up the show, but I'm terrified that as soon as I wrap up the show, news is going to break with the 49ers.
I think you should take that risk and then come right back on live.
All right. I'm doing it. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Sorry there wasn't more 49ers related news, but I can't make it happen. So I apologize for that. If anything does happen, I will hop right on live. The only thing I got going on the rest of the day is I got to pick up my kid from school in about an hour. Other than that, that's it. So if anything happens, I'll hop on live. It's why you got to like and subscribe to the channel and click the little bell. If you click the bell, you'll get notified every single time we go live. So you won't miss anything. That's why you got to do it. Got almost 300 people watching. Give us some likes, share, tell a friend. We always appreciate it. Vish, thank you. I appreciate you rearranging your schedule a little bit today. And let's hope the Niners do something.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Rob. This was awesome. Obviously tough to see the Arik Armstead news. Maybe he stays. There's always that possibility. But this is a fun show. I still obviously, thanks to the silver tweet, am going to be refreshing Twitter all day, expecting a large move from the 49ers. And I can't wait to see what happens.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody. We'll talk soon.